Hi, I'm Pam East. I don't normally do a cooking show. I'm more of a jewelry kind of person, but I wanted to share with you guys my Bubby's very best baklava recipe. There is no baklava recipe that is better. It is so good. You can ask anyone who's had it. It's really fabulous. And my gift to you is to give you this recipe this year. The full recipe is down in the description, so you can read the ingredients and everything down there. I'm going to be showing you step by step how to put it together, and let's make baklava. Step one is making the filling, and we're going to be using walnuts. Traditionally, this is made with pistachios, but this is my Bubby's recipe. And Bubby used walnuts, and it's fabulous. I promise, I promise, I promise. So this is, like, everybody agrees, the best baklava in the world. So I'm going to just throw that into the food processor, and then I'm going to add the sugar. It's half a cup of sugar. I washed my hands, don't worry. And we're going to cook it. And then I'm going to throw in the cinnamon. And oh dear. Yeah, that's not going to work. As I was saying, a tablespoon of cinnamon. And you can make it a healthy tablespoon. It can be a little bit rounded. Cinnamon is good. We like the cinnamon. And then we're going to pulse this. So it's going to get loud. I don't want to completely chop up the nuts, but I do want to get them somewhat. And that's it. Let me show you what that looks like. Let me get this off of here. And there is the cinnamon and sugar and nuts, and that is the filling that's going to go into the baklava. And next we'll start working on the phyllo dough. So I have melted a pound of butter, and I just use regular salted butter. I don't bother with sweet butter or unsalted butter. I'm just going to put that up here, and I have a little pastry brush which I'm going to use, and I'm going to start by buttering the pan. And yeah, there's a lot of butter in this. At no point did I tell you that this was low calorie. Sometimes I only use a 3/4 of a pound, and I only melt 3/4 of a pound, and then if it turns out I need a little more, I melt a little more. But I'm going to be making 2 batches today, so I went ahead and melted a whole pound. All right, so I get a nice buttery coat to start with, and I'm going to set that there, and now I have to set up my phyllo dough. Now the phyllo dough, this is an 18-sheet pack, and it's not quite enough, so you need 1.5. I've got 2 of them here. You need 1.5 packs to do this. And you need the wide ones, not the short. This is the really long kind. Does it have the measurements on it somewhere? Yeah, it is 13 by 17 inch. I got this at Safeway. Signature Selects. I think they have this at Kroger too. Maybe? I don't know. You'll have to look around. I'm not real fond of the Pepperidge Farm. I like this one pretty good, and I like the Athens brand, really good, but I haven't been able to find the Athens since I moved. But this is good stuff. This is 18 sheets per package, and then when you roll it out, you can find the end. Where's the end? There it is. And it's going to be sort of folded in half, and you're going to have to unfold it. Find the fold here. There it is. I'm going to just sort of lay this out. And you need to get it out of the, if you've frozen it, get it out several hours before you make your baklava. In the fridge, at least an hour or two before you make your baklava, because it needs to be cool but not cold. If it's cold, it breaks up a lot. And you don't want it to get too warm, because if it gets too warm, it'll start sticking to itself. So, but this is cool, and the sheets are nice and flexible. I am going to put half of this in, then the filling, and then the other half. So I'm going to do 12 sheets. So I'm going to count down 12 sheets, and I'm going to put a little marker in. I'll just use the end of the wrapper for that, so that I'll know when I got to 12 sheets. So 1, 2, 11, 12. Okay, so there's 12 sheets. Actually, 13 sheets. And I'm going to just put a marker in there, so now that I'll know when I get to that point. And now I'm going to start well, not quite. Notice that this is wider than my pan. So I have to trim off an edge so that it'll fit in the pan. You don't want it coming up on the sides. And I should have measured that before I opened it up. Let me just check it this way real quick. And okay, looks like I'm going to be taking about that much off of the edge. And I'm just using a sharp knife. Just don't pull, just press. And just press it down. And you'll have to judge by your pan. You know, everybody's got different size pans. So I'm done with that. All right, let's get this in there now. I'm going to grab that first sheet and lay it in the pan. And that perfect fit. And then we butter. And now when you go to butter, mix it up every time. It's going to want to separate, and you don't want to be just using the oil and not the solids. So you have to give it a mix every single time you go into it. Now I'm going to do the next layer. There it is. This is the last sheet on the bottom. And I'll put the butter on, and then we're going to add the nuts. This is a boatload of butter. Not going to lie. Okay, let's add the nuts. All right, here's our nuts. And I'm just going to dump this in here. And I'll set that aside, and then I'm going to spread it evenly over the phyllo dough. Nuts and cinnamon and sugar, what could go wrong? All right, then I'll be using the rest of this, and then I'm going to get some more out of the other box. And earlier I said it takes a box and a half. That was not actually accurate. It takes one box plus 6 sheets. You've got 24 sheets total, 12 underneath and 12 on top. This first one, you have to be real careful with this one, because it wants to move when you put the butter on, so I'm kind of holding it gently while I get the butter on this first layer. And after a few layers, it gets easier. Also, the pans tend to get a little bigger as they come up. The sides of the pan are slanted. So I start kind of going back and forth. I go all the way up to the edge. Oops, see, it's wanting to catch. I go all the way up to the edge on one side, and then I'll go all the way up to the edge on the other side on the next layer, so that I'm kind of going back and forth and getting it completely covered. Make sure that butter gets mixed every time so you don't end up with just milky stuff. And again, you may have to hold it for the first few layers. All right, I need 6 more slices of phyllo dough. So I'm gonna get another one out here, and when I trim it this time, I'm gonna trim it a little bit wider so that it goes edge to edge a little better, because the pan gets a little wider towards the top. There we go. Ah, there's the fold. Let me get that butter out of the way. All right, so I need 6 slices, or sheets, I should say, not slices. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay. So I've got to trim it, but I'm going from the top this time instead of the bottom of the pan. So I'm kind of looking, and it's maybe only 3/4 of an inch this time instead of about an inch last time. So a thought that may have occurred to you at this point, oh, did I count out the 6 and then not more? Oh, I counted it out, then cut it, and then pulled away my mark. So I have to count again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, nope, that's 7. So it's probably occurred to you that you're going to end up with extra phyllo dough, and you may be wondering, what am I going to do with that extra phyllo dough? And I have a suggestion. Something that I like to do is I chop up apples and I toss them with a little cinnamon or pumpkin pie spice and maybe a few craisins. You can use other kinds of fruit. I've used peaches, and then I cut this into strips. I cut the extra phyllo into strips, fairly wide strips, and I put a little blob and fold it, and then I butter the whole thing, and then I do a flag fold. So I'm making a little triangle pastry filled with fruit, and then you can just bake those up, and they're delicious. I don't put any sugar in them because I like them that way, but you can, obviously. So you can make individual little, what would you call those? Popovers or something like that. You could fill them with ricotta cheese. You could fill them with all kinds of things. I'm pretty generous with this last coat. I want to make sure that it's well buttered all over the top. All right, there it is. So the key to baklava is you have to cut it before you bake it. There is no cutting it after it's after it's baked. It would just fall apart. So you do the cutting of the pieces right now. Now traditionally it's cut into diamonds. I don't really like to do it that way. I have a more efficient way. I just do little squares and I get a more efficient use. I get 96 pieces out of one pan like this. So it's always a press move, not a drag particularly. And I start, well, I start with this side, with the long side. And I'm going to eyeball the middle, and I start in the middle. And I'm just going to press, 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 and then make sure it's cut all the way to the edge. So you want to make sure it's all the way through. Then I'm going to split that in half, and I'm going to press. And I'll do the same over here. Just split it in half. And now I will do each of these sections in thirds. They're not going to all be identical. Doesn't matter. All right, so now I need to do the long ways. Again, I'm going to start right in the middle. And I just eyeball it because it doesn't have to be perfect. And then I'm going to cut those in half. The two halves get cut in half. Just make sure you have clean hands because you're going to have to put your hands on this to make this work. So like I got this one all off to one side. It doesn't matter. It's going to be okay. See how they want to pull? You just push them back into place. I'm going to turn this. It's a little easier if I go this way. And then I'm going to make each of these in half. So there's going to be some larger pieces down here because I was off. Somebody will really enjoy those larger pieces. Just put them back when they pull. They'll be just fine. Last one. And are you going to cut up your pan? Yes, you are. You'll have little lines on your pan afterwards. I have devoted, but this is my baklava pan. Every year I use the same pan. And just make sure they're all settled in there, and then that is ready to bake. At this point my oven has preheated to 375, and I'm going to pop them in the oven. The sauce that goes over the top of the baklava is a simple syrup with lemon, and it starts with 3 cups of sugar. So here we go. We're going to get 3 cups of sugar. 1, 2, 3. Get that out of the way. And then it's got 3/4 of a cup of water. And it says 3 tablespoons of lemon juice. I'm usually a little more generous than that. I'm just going to squeeze out a lemon here. Oh, I love the smell of lemons. I'm just going to go ahead and do both sides. All right, so there's my lemon juice. I can just leave that on Okay, so this is 1/8 of a cup measure, which is 2 tablespoons. And I'm just going to go ahead and 1, and then I'll do 1.5, but it'll probably be a little more than 1.5 because I like it lemony. So, all right, and then I'm just going to mix this up, and then we're going to cook it. Let's take this over to the stove. All right, so let me turn on my oven here, my burner. And this is, I happen to have a induction stove, but you can do this on any kind. If you're going to do this on a electric stove, start the sauce immediately when you put the baklava in the oven, because it takes longer for an electric stove to heat. But if you're using induction or gas, then I usually wait till 8 to 10 minutes before it's going to come out, and that's when I start the sauce. I really want the sauce and the baklava to be done at right around the same time. And I'm going to want this to boil twice. This is how you make a simple syrup. And I've got it on high here, and I'm just waiting for it to come to a boil. We're watching the pot, so it could take longer than usual. Okay, it's starting to simmer, but we want a full rolling boil. So it's going to actually start bubbling up out of the pan. There we go. That's that full rolling boil. I'm going to turn it off. Now, if you have an electric stovetop, move it to a different burner. But for gas and induction, you can just leave it where it is. And I'm going to stir it back down. I just turned the heat off. It's boiled once. You have to boil twice for this. So once I get it down and not boiling, then I'm going to turn it on. I'm going to boil it a second time. All right, here we go. I'm going to turn it back on. It won't take as long this time. There we go, almost immediately. Boil, boil, boil. And I want it to really start foaming up, and then I turn it off. All right, so it's boiled twice. And now I just have to wait for my baklava to come out. And then I'm going to pour hot syrup over hot baklava. That's how it gets into all the layers. It kind of boils into all the layers. Okay, it's done. Let's get it out of the oven. I have a cooling rack here. And here it comes. Oh, fogged my glasses. Ooh, that is perfection. All right, let me close up my oven. And here comes the sauce. All right, so here we go. This is how we do the sauce. Right on the hot, fresh from the oven, and it's going to sizzle a little bit. And this helps kind of boil the stuff through the layers. Whoops, don't do that. A lot of recipes you'll see will call for a honey sauce. I do not like the honey sauce. It is very sticky and overly sweet. Trust me when I tell you that this is the best recipe on the face of the earth. Everyone who has been gifted baklava by me will attest to that. This is my Bubby's recipe. I learned at my Bubby's knee. She was not Greek. I know people ask me that, oh, baklava, was she Greek? And it's like, no, we're Russian Jews, we're Ukrainian Jews. But she liked to cook, she liked to bake, and she would try all kinds of recipes, and then she'd make them her own. And this was the family favorite. We loved this, made it every holiday season. And I still make it every holiday season to this day. And there we go. Now it just has to cool off. I hope you've enjoyed watching me make baklava and that you're going to go and make your own. It is really good, and I promise it's not that difficult. The full recipe, again, is down in the description, so you can go down there to get all the ingredients and instructions. And I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you next time.